National Collegiate Athletic Association is pulling 7 championship events from the state of North Carolina over the state's so-called bathroom law. The NCAA joins dozens of high-profile companies, CEOs, entertainers, universities, and states and cities that have all spoken out against the law known as HB2. In fact, the NBA withdrew its All-Star game from Charlotte over the summer.
HB2 requires transgender people to use public restrooms that correspond with the sex on their birth certificate, not their gender identity. The Justice Department and the American Civil Liberties Union are challenging this law. NCAA President Mark Emmert is in Studio 57 for an interview that you'll see only on CBS This Morning. We welcome you, Mark, to the table.
Thank you.
So,
good to be with you.
This is a very big decision. Take us through the process to reach it.
Well, this is an issue, of course, that emerged last winter when the state of North Carolina passed HB2. We have a board of governors. It's made up of 16 university presidents. It's been looking at and evaluating this throughout that time frame. There was hope that this could be resolved during the summer, during the legislative session, or perhaps this fall through the court system. None of those things came to pass. So in order to have time to relocate those events and move them to a place where our students were still going to get a very high-quality experience, the board had to make a decision right away, and they did it last night.
But that's the nuts and bolts of it. I want to know the thinking about why you decided that we have to actually pull the plug on it.
Oh, sure. Well, this is an issue that's very fundamental to all of higher ed. You know, the college sports is conducted inside university and college contexts. These are our students. Fairness and inclusion are right at the heart of what the NCAA does and what universities do. And so for our university presidents, this was the proverbial no-brainer.
Did you speak with North Carolina's governor about this?
I'd spoken to him in the spring about it, and he's expressed a lot of views about it throughout this process, but I hadn't spoken to him last evening.
But they didn't lobby to try and keep all these championships in North Carolina?
We had a process by which all the individual bidders were able to express their views of what they could do around this, but in the end, the board realized that with this law in place, they simply can't be successful.
A state GOP spokesperson called this decision almost comical and said, and I want to read the quote, "I wish the NCAA was this concerned about the women who were raped at Baylor," end quote. That refers to the scandal involving several football players, coaches, and administrators at the school. The NCAA actually has no definitive policy at this point as to how schools should handle sexual assault cases. Do you think then that response has merit?
No, I don't. First of all, the statement is false. The Board of Governors a couple of years ago, in fact, put in place a policy around how universities should be and colleges should be handling sexual assault. The two issues are completely unrelated. There's no question that this is a decision. The HB2 decision is one that's going to engender opinions on both sides of the aisle. It's a political season. That's unfortunate, and people are going to say comments like that.
But to be clear, the NCAA does have a definitive policy in place with how schools are supposed to handle sexual assault charges?
Yeah, it does. 2 years ago in August, the Board of Governors passed a resolution.
A resolution, but
yes.
Not a policy.
It doesn't, but you know what they're doing right now, that same board is in the midst of formulating whether or not that policy should become an enforceable rule, a rule that would allow the National Association to go in and punish schools specifically over the way they handle that.
Do you think it should?
I do, yes, I do.
Did you have any conversation with Adam Silver? You know, the NBA made a similar decision. They pulled the All-Star game. Did you seek other people's counsel? How did you? I'm really trying to understand the process when you said this is right, this is wrong, this is what bothers us about this particular HB2 law.
Yeah, of course, I've talked to Adam a number of times on this and many other issues. But the reason the university presidents reached this conclusion last evening is because, again, this is about sports that are conducted in the context of universities, and it's trying to reflect the values of higher education in America. Inclusion, fairness, treating all of your student athletes, their coaches, their fans in a way that reflects those values at our championships. That's what matters most. This is the championships are a celebration of everything about higher education. So
were students weighing in too?
Students have weighed in on this because we have students involved in all of our governance process.
Mark, I want to ask you, as we come now out of another Olympic cycle here, outside compensation for athletes, specifically Olympic athletes. Katie Ledecky will be attending Stanford. In doing so, she will be foregoing tens of millions of dollars in potential endorsements. It could be argued she's doing Stanford and by extension the NCAA a favor by swimming collegiately, while not undoing the entire amateurism model. Why is she not allowed to keep the money paid to her for things she did before she ever stepped foot on that campus?
Well, she is. In the current NCAA policies, if she, for example, is awarded, as she was, compensation, modest compensation from the USOC for having won a gold medal, don't quote me, but I think it's $25,000 that you can get through that policy. It's been more than, I think, 15 years since the NCAA members put in place a policy allowing you to retain those funds.
But why can't she be endorsed now and make the millions of dollars that companies want to pay her?
Yeah, so what individuals have to do, and whether they're Olympians or basketball players, is they've got to make a decision whether or not they want to maintain their amateur status, compete as a student athlete, or become a professional athlete. There's a number of Olympians that decide, you know, I really do want to go compete professionally. I want to go compete in Europe. I want to accept endorsements. Others say, no, I want to compete as an amateur. Same thing happens in golf. At a golf tournament at Augusta National, there'll be someone competing as an amateur and others as professionals. Those decisions are individual decisions that people have to make.
Mark Emmert, thank you for being here.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
My pleasure.